That's right. Good morning. The August 17th Board of Education meeting is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I just wanted to mention that Dr. Frank is out of town today and will not be joining us, and our student board member, Ms. Williams, will be leaving after the presentation of the readiness for opening of schools to go to her student board member training downtown Annapolis. So she'll be excusing herself. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 800. Item 2.04 is established agenda order, and the agenda will stand as published. Item 2.05 is recognitions, and we do not have any recognitions today. Item 2.06, school and community highlights. And Mrs. Hummer.
As we're all gearing up for the start of school next week, I had the pleasure of attending two events that kind of went together. Last week was the Unlocking Our Potential Conference put on. It was a fabulous event hosted by Anthony Alston and his team at the Office of Equity and the Office of Special Education with Bobby Pedrick, and it was a wonderful, exciting way to get everybody looking forward to the coming school year and get you fired up for it. And the big thing that was talked about is how do we reach every student, no matter where they're coming from or what their home situation, how do we reach every student and bring out the most in them. The day before, I had attended the summer evening school graduation, and we saw 27 of our students, many of whom come from some of our most challenged life stories, and it was incredibly moving, and that was a perfect example of how the staff here at AACPS really does work to unlock the potential and help every child. So it was a perfect way to start the school year as we saw these kids who'd overcome so much who graduated, and many thanks to the staff of evening and summer school for all the work they do to help those children. It was amazing. And then the conference was wonderful. And then Saturday, I went to the Back to School Expo at Meade Middle School. Hundreds of kids and families there, fired up about school, even though it was 110 degrees. It was so hot. But there was a huge crowd there. And one of our community partners, I-5 Church, who are just fabulous for all they do for kids. And it was just a great way to get everybody excited. So I don't know about teachers and students, but I'm fired up for first day of school Monday.
Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. I didn't see Mrs. Hummer, but I was also at the Back to School Expo, and I do want to thank, the churches. There were two churches who helped, as well as other county agencies who came to talk about what they can do for our kids, and everyone who donated so that all of those backpacks and school supplies could go out to our kids. It was really amazing, and I was glad that some of the things were inside so that you could at least rotate through the school building instead of having to be outside the whole time. But they were very good. You walked in the entrance and they said, here's some water, hydrate. That was the first thing they said to you. So I also had the opportunity to see in action for the first time this summer our Global Languages Summer Camp, and it was phenomenal. I saw because I had a sixth grader going, but even as a school board member, as a parent, it was amazing what they did with these kids. They learned so much, and they learned so much culturally about the 4 different languages that were being taught there, and they shared with each other amongst the group. And it was really, I want to thank everyone who had something to do with that, because it was a wonderful experience for my daughter, and it was wonderful for me to go and see what they were doing.
And I just want to add that Mr. Gilliland and I had the chance on August 8th to welcome our new teachers, which was always a fun event. And thank you to Flory and your team for all of the hard work you did to get all of those new teachers hired for us. Item 2.07 is our PTA report, and I don't believe we have a PTA report yet. When school starts, we'll have a PTA report in September. And item 2.08 is our readiness for the opening of schools presentation.
Good morning, President Corbach, Vice President Hummer, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Arlotto. For the record, my name is Kathy Kubik, and I work in the Office of School Performance, and I'm going to begin by having the members of our team introduce themselves.
Good morning, Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction.
Good morning, Mary Talar, Assistant Superintendent, Advanced Studies and Programs.
Good morning, Sally Egan, Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services.
Good morning, Flory Bozzella, Executive Director of Human Resources.
And Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Our readiness report begins with the Office of School Performance. And first, the people. We have 19 schools opening this year with new principals. 18 of them came from within Anne Arundel County Public Schools, 10 are new principals, and 9 are transfers. 52 schools have changes in their assistant principals, 21 promoted, 27 transferred, and 4 from outside of our county. The second area is student schedules. At the secondary level, we worked hard with the Office of Student Data and our Student Services Division to ensure that all students will have a complete schedule on the first day. And of course, our counselors are busy back at schools right now, finishing up and polishing up the last few schedules. And at the elementary level, for our youngest learners, we're working to make sure all kids are ready with their homerooms to go. The third area is school construction. We're certainly looking forward to the next ribbon cutting ceremony at West Annapolis Elementary School on August 22nd. And additionally, as usual at this time of the year, we have 2 schools opening one day late just to finish up the last bit of their construction progress, or to continue to get the building ready. The fourth area is athletics. Really proud of this area this year. When you look at the fact that last year our county had 10,450 student athletes in all of our sports, with an additional 795 athletes who participated in our unified athletic program. That brings us to this year, where we have 1,118 coaches. These coaches are now certified in care and prevention, CPR, concussion training, and heat training. But additionally, what's new this year is we've reached 61% of our coaches are not the traditional classroom teacher. So our athletics department, under the leadership of Clayton Culp, has instituted new modules for coaches what to do in those critical moments of sport. He's teaching these coaches what to do when your team loses, what to do when an official misses a call, or how to be a confidant for a student athlete appropriately. All of this hard work pays off because, as you'll remember, last year Anne Arundel County Public Schools brought home 5 state championships. Finally, lastly, but certainly not least, the people in the Office of School Performance. We'll open this year with 1 new regional assistant superintendent, 3 new directors of school performance. We've also been ready, getting our people ready. Specifically, we hosted a conference last year where we brought in Len Forkas, a professional development opportunity, and he spoke to the principals of our buildings about the importance of team and having great team members. So in summary, all of the Office of School Performance members are ready, along with our 121 principals and their school-based leadership teams, to open the doors for a successful 2016-2017 school year.
Good morning. We in the Division of Curriculum and Instruction are very excited for the start of the school year. During the July Curriculum Innovation and Assessment Writing Academy, elementary and secondary teachers worked with department coordinators and resource teachers to create 77 new curriculum documents for our teachers and students. Quarterly assessments have been developed in the core content areas to focus on critical thinking, problem solving, and extensive writing so that students are having similar experiences throughout courses and to also further teacher collaboration. Formats include paper pencil, digital platform, and performance-based assessments. Coordinators and resource teachers have created new student learning tasks to support learning and build student reading and writing skills. Throughout the summer, staff from the Offices of Curriculum and Instruction, Advanced Studies and Program, and Professional Growth and Development have collaborated to plan and deliver professional development opportunities for multiple audiences. Last week, our offices interacted with over 400 new members of our AACPS family at New Teacher Orientation. Last month, teachers from across our system participated in professional learning opportunities on various topics, ranging from increasing curriculum access through arts integration to building relevance for student learning through unpacking content standards. Today, over 100 professional development sessions are being held for all our elementary and secondary teachers throughout the school system. We are thrilled to launch the new second grade curriculum this fall. Through shared efforts, we have produced a child-centered curriculum for our young learners that is exciting and engaging. Through the integrated learning platform, highlights learning blocks and truly meets the unique needs of our earliest learners. Second grade teachers are receiving several different resources to facilitate instruction: guided reading books, developmental and structured play supplies, and student discourse materials. Teachers will also have access to Learning Block professional development podcasts as they are released to our Blackboard site. We are excited to roll out our new instructional approach to middle school to meet the demands of next generation science standards and the new Maryland integrated assessment. This approach is centered around systems thinking and modeling to explain phenomena and to provide a context for the ideas to be learned. Students are conducting investigations, solving problems, and engaging in discussions that focus on the strength of evidence used to generate claims. To support the three-dimensional learning, students will use the digital platform STEMscopes by Accelerated Learning. This digital platform will tightly align to the next-gen standards. It is replacing the traditional textbook and will provide students with the three-dimensional learning experiences. This platform, when used in conjunction with our updated and upgraded middle school curricula, will make science engaging, relevant, and fun for all learners. We will continue our work with engaging instruction and putting students at the center of learning. Time and attention is focused on developing and delivering learner-centered lessons that connect the most essential concepts and skills. The goal is ensuring students are actively doing and actively thinking through communication and collaboration.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to be here today to share what we in Advanced Studies and Programs have done over the summer and what is in store for this year as students come back to our doors. Our goal to elevate all students and eliminate all gaps, and our mission of educating all of our students to be well prepared for college and the workforce continue to guide our efforts. Our STEM and BEMA program students in grades 6 through 11 participated in summer bridge experiences to help prepare them for the upcoming school year. Middle school students focused on exploration, active engineering, team building, and communication, while sessions for our high school students range from movable art to app design, robotics, cyber STEM, and environmental resource management. Summer bridge sessions in PVA focused on arts engagement. Middle school students either experienced each component of their PVA program or had their opportunity to engage in an intensive study of art technique that was both fun, rigorous, and also relevant to the course of study. The experience for 9th and 10th graders included collaborative projects with workshops and performance concentrations in their specified area. PVA juniors, however, had the opportunity to study abroad, where they were immersed in either collaborative art set and/or theater projects at the Georgian Theatre Royal. In IB, the summer enabled the middle school students to think critically about problems, design and build solutions, and experience cultures through the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. High school students, on the other hand, were offered a CSIB, Forensic Summer Camp. With a stage crime scene, students collaborated with attorneys, forensic scientists, and police officers. The week-long exploration culminated in a trial where each IB student team presented findings to a community audience. ASP office also actively participated in the Curriculum Academy with our CNI colleagues, the result of which was enhanced strategy consultation with the development of new curriculum and/or curriculum details in PVA, STEM, IB, signature, and service learning. This included capstone, social action, language, and innovation courses, and the integration of gaming as a learning platform. And we further prepared for the opening of 2 digital learning centers that offer a variety of online course offerings to include recovery, original credit, dual credit, and just interest-based options. Additionally, recognizing the correlation of the teaching and learning experience and student results, ASP office leaders both provided and/or created engaging professional development for our system's adult learners. This included middle school AVID and IB conference attendance, AVID foundational and implementation training, IB unit planning and onboarding, advanced learning strategy sessions, and STEM infusion workshops that emphasize project-based learning, social responsiveness, and technology. Finally, our collaborative efforts with curriculum instruction and the Office of School Performance has ensured a successful EE expansion to elementary schools in Chesapeake and Northeast clusters. We are looking forward to bringing the EE experience to hundreds more students this upcoming school year.
The Division of Student Services is fully staffed for the upcoming school year. We have hired some terrific new staff, 4 psychologists, 2 social workers, and 1 pupil personnel worker. Although we added no new positions in student services, we hired 18 school counselors due to retirement, resignation, or job change, and have increased our staff diversity as well. In alternative education, we added a new position, restorative practices resource specialist. All of our central office staff will be out in schools next week. This year, Student Services will work closely with the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families to provide a special focus in the North County area, focusing on 3 specific populations: homeless youth, youth impacted by incarceration, and disconnected youth. Another area of focus for elementary school counselors will include mandatory training in CEFL, which is Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, strategies for working with young children so that their unique social emotional needs can be incorporated into the K-2 curriculum and classroom. The division continues its outreach to students' families regarding immunization compliance status. In addition, we are continuing our collaboration with the County Health Department and do not anticipate any organizational changes in school health services for the coming school year. The Safe and Orderly Schools Office worked collaboratively with school-based and central office staff at all levels to provide the Code of Student Conduct, which will be arriving in schools as soon as printing is complete. Our staff will continue to provide individualized support and professional development to schools this year on code implementation and proactive measures to keep our students safe and in school. Interactive discipline code lessons will be implemented at secondary schools as well. Alternative education staff will also continue to provide training on restorative practices to school staff to assist them to problem solve effectively, and will also align professional development of teachers and administrators with multi-tiered systems of support. Of special note is our division's ongoing support of students, staff, and families with our trauma teams when they experience unexpected traumatic events such as fatal car accidents and untimely death. For example, this summer alone, 2 elementary school students and 3 high school students passed away. Supports provided included professional and personal outreach to the principal and staff, provision of counseling supports, and ongoing monitoring of need, including planning for students' first day back at school. Our partnership with Human Resources and utilization of the Employee Assistance Program will continue to help our staff with any lingering concerns. Our test for support in the division is always what is in the best interest of the students.
Good morning. So each year, the period of time we consider summer feels shorter and shorter. To put it in perspective for you today, though, since teachers left us on June 17th, there have been 36 work days in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. In those 36 work days, we've been busy in the Division of Human Resources, hiring new staff, supporting the voluntary transfer process, transitioning employees who have separated either through retirement or a voluntary separation. And while this speeding train into 2016-17 is finally slowing down, there has been exciting energy surrounding the efforts to ensure that our schools are fully staffed with highly qualified teachers. So when classes resume, you've already heard from Dr. Kubik about the many new administrative faces. As of Monday, there are 583 new teachers joining Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And in a world full of choices, we are delighted that those people chose us to be a part of their career. For comparison purposes, last year, the same number that we talked about was 549. So our number's a little higher this year. We have many enthusiastic first-year teachers as well as experienced teachers joining us. Teachers coming to us from other Maryland districts as well as out of state. And included in our new hires are 124 teachers who are graduates of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. By comparison, last year it was 89. We have 60 new hires who were interns with us as part of their educational program, and we have a brother and sister, both music teachers, joining our teaching population. In elementary, we continue to be blessed with many, many qualified candidates who are interested in coming and teaching. We filled so far 174 elementary positions as of Friday. We're also happy to share that 23 of our candidates who participated in the 7th Annual Teacher Diversity Recruitment Weekend accepted offers of employment and will be starting in our schools with our students on Monday. In addition to the faces of new hires in many schools, 522 teachers secured new opportunities through the voluntary transfer process. We currently have 451 National Board Certified teachers in our schools, distributed throughout every cluster as well as central office, and a number of teachers that are awaiting scores for this year. Currently, we have representation of NBC teachers in 89% of our schools. As of Monday, we had only 30 unfilled school-based instructional positions, which include newly allocated teacher positions to address last-minute enrollment increases, as well as some full and part-time positions in critical shortage areas, such as World and Classical Language, technology, special education, and math. School-based leaders are continuing to work with staff in HR right now to try to fill as many of those positions as possible before students arrive. But for those positions that are not filled, we have over 1,800 subs ready to go. So they will cover those positions until we can get teachers hired. I'd like to also publicly acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the staff in HR, as well as recognize the support from staff throughout Anne Arundel County Public Schools as they worked with us in 36 days to fill these vacancies and address all of the changes that are happening. Thank you.
So likewise, the group from the support services side of the house worked tirelessly over the last 8 weeks to make the schools and operations ready for the beginning of school, including our facilities unit that undertook construction activities at approximately 70 of our 125 schools, had work undertaken again over the course of the last 8 weeks, including the 2 shining stars, which would be West Annapolis, which will open to students on the 23rd of August. The ribbon cutting for that school is the 22nd in the afternoon, as well as the next to final phase of Benfield Elementary School. That project will complete over the course of winter break likewise. All schools are in the finishing stages now of getting the final cleaning activities, stocking, preparatory activities, all in anticipation of our students coming back to us on Monday. Transportation, which transports approximately 59,000 of our 81,000 youngsters are eligible, have completed all of their bus inspections, all of the driver training and certification requirements have been completed, and the bus routes have been developed, are posted, and the buses are in fact doing their dry runs today to test those routes and make sure that everybody's familiar with them, as well as the navigability of the roads that they will be traveling over the course of the upcoming year. In food and nutrition services, similarly, all the staff has been trained, all the inspections have been completed, the kitchens are being stocked as we speak of the goods and wares required to support the food and nutrition services operation. The online meal benefit application package is up and available, as is the My Meals Pay Plus, where parents can load monies onto the youngsters' individual accounts. And finally, the most exciting thing in food and nutrition services is, once again, there was no increase in the prices of meals or milk offerings at our schools. In technology and in student data, instructional data, all of the refresh computers have been put in, as well as numerous devices deployed at the schools, set up and imaged so they're ready, made ready for the first day of school. All the infrastructure upgrades that we had planned to complete over the course of the summer have been completed and tested, and again are ready. And finally, all of our central systems, those that support our schools as well as here at central office, and those that are accessed by our public and our students, are up. They've been tested, and again, everything is ready to roll for Monday morning. So as you've heard, we are ready and looking forward to what we anticipate being an awesome school year. And with that, we'll take any questions or answers that the board might have.
Ms. Sasso.
What is the total number of teachers that we have for the whole system? Do you know?
According to the budget office this morning, the total number of teacher positions from all funding sources is 6,003.63. A short person.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, everyone. I have been here now for 6 months, and I'm just tremendously impressed each and every day and each and every meeting, and then, you know, to sit through one of these for the first time as a board member, you know, I'm almost speechless just because this is so impressive. And you know, I can single out each group and say things. You know, Dr. Batten, I'm in curriculum development, and you know, for my day job, and I can say we don't get summers off, and so I know what you've been doing this whole summer. So thank you for that. You know, it seems just like yesterday, Dr. Kubik, sitting next to you at a graduation. No offense to Dr. Arlotto, but your academic regalia was the best looking. It's a University of Maryland gown, right? But I, you know, just want to thank all of you, but thank Dr. Arlotto for your leadership in this. And Dr. Kubik, I know the movement and shifts of administrators, you and your team have just done a yeoman's job, so thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask specifically. I know they're probably in the human resources realm. You've rattled off some statistics that I find just amazing. You know, if I've got it right, we went from 549 new teachers to 583, which gives us 6,003 point something total teachers to follow on to Mrs. Sasso's question. The net increase from 2015 to 2016, I'm sorry, 2015-16 school year to 2016-17, what's that net increase if you have that available?
I do. It's 97.23 FTEs.
Of that, I know, you know, we've had retirements and so forth. A number of teachers are no longer part of the system for that reason. And then, as with any business, as with any industry, and certainly with school systems, some teachers opt to leave one jurisdiction and move to another. And I know some of our former Anne Arundel County public school teachers are now in other jurisdictions. Do you have an idea? And I know these numbers are still coming together, and there's a formal presentation coming later in the fall, but do you know what that number is if we were to, I guess, define specifically the number of teachers that left Anne Arundel to go to another another LEA within Maryland?
I don't have that total number at this point in time, but the board each month gets a list of separations, and on the side you'll see the reasons for separation. So in anticipation that somebody might ask that question, I actually went through today's exhibit, and today's exhibit reflects 70, I believe it was 80 separations, and of those, 60% indicated that they were leaving us to go to another Maryland school district. And 21% said they were moving, with most of them indicating moving out of state. But we can provide that information to the board cumulatively once we finalize all of the reporting. We are still accepting resignations because our teacher's contract has a clause that they can leave us with 30 days notice. So when we do the report to the board later, we'll have all of that information available. But in today's packet, you will see information based on the data I just cited to you.
And then one last question that I guess is a follow-on to that, and as Mrs. Korbelak alluded, we were at the very honored to be at the new teacher orientation. I believe it was last Monday. And I was just amazed. I cannot remember, forgive me, who asked the question. It may have been you. How many teachers were first-year teachers, and then how many teachers were experienced who came to Anne Arundel from other jurisdictions? And I want to say that I was just surprised at the number of people that stood up. Do you know how many teachers among the experienced came from other LEAs to Anne Arundel County?
We will know that information once we get all that data entered. Again, looking at today's report for the board, I believe that 38% of the folks that will be appointed by board action today are coming to us with prior teaching experience. Again, that information is contained in your packet, but we'll have the cumulative number for you when we get that report later for you.
And final question on that. Is that, and forgive me for not being here last fall, is that a public presentation that we'll have the opportunity to have dialogue?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Birch.
I want to thank you all again too. I actually like today better than the first day of school because I love this presentation. It's one of my favorite parts of the year. So I want to thank everyone for all their hard work, for our kids, for everyone's kids. We really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Mrs. Nally.
I would like to echo their sentiments. Thank you so much. 36 days, Miss Miracle. And all of you, thank you. And I've seen all the activity. As you know, I have 3 little grandchildren at Annapolis Elementary, and so I've been watching that excitement there, and I think it's building across the county. In previous years, though, I do have a question, and you may not have this answer. We have discussed, or there has been discussion about the number of substitutes we've had to use in hard-to-fill positions. And when I say hard to fill, I think you know better than I do, physics, math positions, and that kind of thing. Will you at the next have that kind of number? How many positions have we actually been unable to fill and that are being filled by substitutes?
We can certainly provide that information to you later. We're optimistic. The good news is there are no physics positions vacant, so that's a good thing.
Really, that is good news.
Yes, yes. Middle school math was a little bit of a challenge for us, and so we've been working on that, but I think that number is going down, and we're optimistic. We still have candidates for many positions. Special education is probably going to continue to be the biggest challenge, and part-time positions, because people would like to work full-time because they would like full-time employment because of the full-time salary.
Sure.
So we're still working on that, but good news, no physics or chemistry vacancies. We were able to fill all of those.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I just had a quick question, Mr. Sheknovich, when you mentioned the buses were out today testing the routes. Are we starting our parallel test of our new software?
All of our efforts at the moment are making sure that the 59,000 students arrive on time Monday morning. So the software project is a little bit of a longer term goal for us.
Mrs. Hummer.
So thank y'all. It was great. I know everything will go smoothly, and I got my bus schedules, and we're ready to get started with all of them. And this is my personal problem for having too many children, but I'm going to, next year, y'all work with me, because back to school night this year, I have kids at 4 different schools, 3 back to school nights the same night. I can't do it. So I'm going to, that's my own fault, but I'm going to work with y'all with that next year. How can you help me with my too many children? But no, very excited. That was fabulous. Thank you.
Dr. Arlato.
Thank you. So we absolutely are, as you are, very excited about the coming school year. It has been it's been a long summer and a short summer at the same time. There's a lot to do, and you've heard from the team, and this is, as they sit before you, an amazing team along with their colleagues here. It happens with a lot of hard work and caring and love for our kids and the work that we do. You heard about the professional development and the curriculum writing and the interviewing and the hiring and the facilities and the construction. We also moved 7,000 computers out and 7,000 computers in to buildings. There's professional development. There is bridge programs for students. There's summer school for students. We served a record number of meals, all in 36 days. And so it's a lot, and we are ready for the school year. We're excited about our 81,000 students coming back to us and all of our teachers and staff. I do need to point out, it also happens with fantastic leadership. Mrs. Jackson and Dr. McMahon have done a fabulous job, so I thank you all. We're ready for the school year.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each, and the board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion and not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but the answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I have 2 cards for this portion, Angela Nambiar and Aaron Hammer.
Good morning. Buenos días. My name is Angela Nambiar, and I am the Multicultural Programming and Outreach Liaison for the Anne Arundel County Public Library. Today I'm here to share with you some of the things our library is doing to reach the Latino community in our county. The first thing is the ALO initiative. ALO, A-L-O, is the greeting we say in Spanish when we answer the phone. ALO? But now, ALO stands for Anne Arundel County Public Library Latino Outreach. This initiative aims to promote library services to the Latino community, highlight Latino culture, and celebrate our county's diversity. In recent years, the population of the Latino community in our county has increased considerably. As a result, there is a need for a greater understanding of the Latino experience in America and in our county. Currently, the library is reaching out to the Latino community by offering bilingual programs and working in collaboration with the bilingual facilitators in the county public schools and other local institutions. As we begin to reach this community, many more Latinos are becoming library users. There is a section on our website dedicated to ALO at www.aacpl.net/ALO. Please visit our webpage and find more information. Following this, I am happy to announce some of the programs and events we are planning for the upcoming Hispanic Heritage Month between September 15 and October 15, 2016. 2 of them are in partnership with AACPS bilingual facilitators Diana Rivera and Karen McDonough. A third program is in collaboration with Gaston Games from AICPS's Bird to Five programs and Nancy Garcia from the Judy Center. Lastly, we will have a program in partnership with the World Music and Dance Department of Anne Arundel County Community College. We can see the list of these programs on our newsletter happenings on page 10. This is our newsletter. Celebrating Afro-Brazilian music and dance, samba and capoeira from the Community College. Bilingual Reading Fair or Bazar de la Lectura or Reading Bazaar. This event will be held at Hilltop Elementary on September 24, and our objective is to celebrate the Spanish language and the importance of bilingualism. It is open to all, and apart from our Latino families, we have a special interest in inviting all the AICPS Spanish teachers and their students. The next event is the bilingual story time Viajando Ando. That means I am traveling. For these story times, and for all the story times AICPL offers to the community, we use the model Every Child Ready to Read, which emphasizes how these 5 simple activities, reading, singing, talking, playing, and writing, can help children to get ready for school. We will offer this story time at the Edgewater Elementary School and at the Edgewater Community Library. Mexican Fashion Show. This is another great event we are planning with the bilingual facilitator Karen McDonough. And the Latino South River High School girls will model the beautiful dresses we have chosen for this event. Finally, the Hispanic Heritage Month celebration at the Marley Station Mall is an event for children from birth to 5, in partnership with the Judy Center and AICPS's Birth to 5 programs. We are very excited to be working with AICPS, and we are looking forward to all these upcoming events. Thank you for your attention and support.
Thank you. Is Aaron Hammer still here?
Good morning, President Korbelak, Dr. Arlotto, and board members. My name is Erin Hamner, and I'm a junior at Glen Burnie High School. I'm here to share my experience with our music program. I am one of the many students who have been affected by the loss of student enrollment in music, and I want you to have a face to remember. I attended Brooklyn Park Middle School for the PVA program and was fortunate to have an AB schedule. I'm not very familiar with the ABC schedule used at other middle schools, but I know that it can prevent many students from taking instrumental music. Students and parents don't always know how to advocate for this change or that it can even be changed. This is now directly affecting our own classes because there are not enough students to have a full-time teacher. Personally, it is preventing me from being able to take band class in school and perhaps not be able to pursue my goal in being selected for the all-county and all-state bands. I am increasing private lessons and looking to possibly take band classes at the community college so that I may be eligible to audition for these groups. This may seem great, but other kids don't have these opportunities outside of school. I chose to attend Glen Burnie High School instead of continuing PVA at Broadneck High School because I wanted to be in my school's marching band. This was not an option the year I would have entered PVA. Now PVA students are allowed to participate in Broadneck's marching band because someone agreed that it is important for those kids to be in marching band as well as staying in PVA. I still prefer to be in Glen Burnie High School because that is where my friends are and it's my community. Though we have a small marching band, it does not take away from our persistence and musical abilities. We are talented and committed students. We want to do what we can to grow our marching band again. I don't know what it will take or who will make the decisions, but I know it is possible and I hope you guys can help. I think about the kids whose parents don't have the time or even know that they can speak up and take action. It's not fair because those kids are missing out on great musical experiences and opportunities, but you can be their voice. The system that encouraged me and allowed me to develop my musical skills is the same system that is now preventing me and other students from taking our skills further. Today's message is not about me. It is about saving the music program in my school. Thank you for listening, and I hope you can help us keep music alive.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak during public comment? Okay, we'll move on to action items. Item 4.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.02, personnel. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
So move.
All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. The next 3 agenda items are third readings for policies. The first is item 4.03, salary deductions GACC. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of policy GACC, subject to final correction for style and format.
So move.
Do I have a second? Any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.04, also a third reading, classes of teacher certificates GBE. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy GBE, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Is there any board questions or comments? Any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Item 4.05, third reading, part-time teachers policy GBL. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy GBL, subject to final correction for style and format.
Is there any public comment? Any board questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. The next 5 policies are all second readings, and these are information items only. Item 4.06, interscholastic athletics, JJB, second reading, and I notice there's one comment.
Yes. Jessica Kutch's Policy and Legislative Counsel. We did receive one public comment on both of this agenda item and the next one, so I'm just going to address them together. Essentially, we got a communication from the school liaison for the Navy, and she informed us about the interstate compact on educational opportunity for military children. We abide by this, and we actually reference it in some of our other policies, but essentially it's just an assurance that when we receive military children into our schools, they're getting all the opportunities that they can, and they're not disadvantaged in any way because their parents may be moving more often than some other children. So the way this relates to interscholastic athletics and extracurricular programs is if we have sort of cutoff dates or application deadlines or tryout dates, those would not forbid the child from being able to participate in that, so long as they meet all the other criteria that they would need to for that either athletic activity or the extracurricular program. So we did reference that as a result of the public comment that we received in both policy in regulation JJBRA and then in policy JJ.
Okay, so that was added since the first reading.
Yes.
Okay, great. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, so this will, oh.
Good morning. Thank you, President Korbelak, board members, Dr. Arlato. I'm Carol Chabani. I'm the school liaison for the Navy. I would like to take this opportunity and to say hello. I have been communicating with Ms. Kutches and her staff regarding both the interscholastic activities, athletics, and the extracurricular activities policies. I just want to give a shout out to your staff and to you as well as to the board for taking the opportunity to include the Military Interstate Compact. It goes by the acronym MIC3. In the policy, this is something that is so crucial, not only because it's part of the law. Maryland signed on to the Interstate Compact in 2009, and it is now law in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, which is awesome. But it's very important because as our mobile military kids move from one place to another, very, very often the thing that really makes them feel like they belong to the school is being part of an after-school club or being able to try out for the band or the orchestra or the basketball or the soccer team or whatever. So thank you so much for including that. It's very important. It sends a very important and welcome message to our military family. So thank you.
Okay, so this policy will come back to the board in September for finalization.
For third reading, yes.
Yep. Okay. Item 4.07, information item extracurricular programs policy JJ. Same addition as the last one. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, we'll see that in September. The next information item is 4.08, policy JGA, student parking at high schools, and there were no comments, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Is there any public comment on this item? All right, we'll see that in September. Item 4.09, curriculum guides and course outlines, policy IF. Also no comments, correct?
That's correct.
Are there any board questions? Is there any public comment? All right, so we'll see that in September. Yes. And item 4.10, advanced learner programs K to 5, policy IFE. Also second reading, no comments. That's correct. We have a question from Mrs. Birch.
I guess it's more of a general question. It looks like we're calling it gifted and talented again. I know some other school districts are moving away from that terminology. And I also just found out that, you know, my children are now in middle school and high school, so the early elementary school is in my past, that people were talking about, well, my child was designated gifted and talented, and I didn't know we did that in that kind of way where people knew if their kid was designated as gifted and talented. I was always glad we didn't do that, because in other school districts that's sort of a label that you get in second grade and you get to keep for the rest of your life and nobody else gets to get it. So I guess I want a little bit of clarification on what's happening with our gifted and talented designations.
Good morning. My name is Don Counts. I am the coordinator of advanced learning for Anne Arundel County. Dr. Arlotto, Madam President, members of the board. In late 2012, Maryland added to COMAR, the annotated code, language about gifted and talented. And the distillation of that really comes down to 3 items. We need to develop, each LEA, I should add, needs to develop a manner of identifying students as gifted and talented. We need to provide appropriate instruction for gifted and talented students based on the rigor, complexity, and we need to provide support for teachers to enable them to meet the needs of gifted and talented students. How we go about doing that is really up to us as an LEA, and every LEA does something slightly different. The state just says, come up with a plan, stick with it, implement it fairly. So in 2013-14, we did our first round of formal GT identification in second grade. What we are now proposing, along with the changes in the procedures we use, is a second round in 5th grade. The idea being that not every child with those academic gifts or the potential for giftedness is necessarily going to manifest that when they're 8 years old. So we are having a second round of identification for 5th graders beginning this year for any student who was not previously identified. I'm aware that Baltimore County recently made national education headlines because they have really stricken the language gifted and talented from anything that's in a board document. I take exception with that because the state, first of all, says these students must be identified. There's a great deal of research nationally and internationally saying that students with these needs, because of their academic gifts, really need to have their needs met. And a lot of research going back a number of years saying if these needs are not met, this group of students is at a high risk for becoming disengaged with public education and dropping out, which is something we want to prevent for all students. I think it's really a moral imperative for us to meet the academic needs of every child that crosses the doorways to our schools. And realizing that these gifted students have special needs, we provide the structures, the strategies, the pedagogies for them. And the regrouping we do is not for the entire day. We don't want to create a silo of students who are cut off from the rest of their grade cohort. Because we also realize at every level and beyond school, people really function best when they're in diverse teams with diverse perspectives. So yes, we need to meet the academic needs of gifted students, but yes, we also need to integrate them into the larger student population part of the time. The majority of the time, actually.
To follow up on that, so this is not the only way, though, that a student could get into an advanced learner track at a school. Is that correct? I mean, could a child who wasn't identified as gifted and talented end up being part of an ALPS class?
Yes. We have two. The students that we identify as gifted and talented really represent roughly the top 5% of all the students. And that's kind of a national norm. Okay. Now, the students who are advanced, the ALPS single subject students, that represents a broader population of roughly the top 20 to 25% of a grade cohort. I personally realize that no matter how careful we are about gathering data, the data we gather on students is a series of snapshots. And some of those can be what I call an academic bad hair day. I think it's very important to also provide the autonomy for schools to recognize, yeah, I know the data says this, but we live with this student on a daily basis. We've known this student for years. We have in our revised procedure for identifying students as either gifted or advanced, we have incorporated both options for teacher feedback and for parent feedback.
Okay.
So we can include that, especially if the data are somewhat inconclusive.
I appreciate that because I know that some school districts, not even all in this state, I mean, everyone wants to have their child classified as gifted, and you end up with 30% of the school district classified as gifted and talented, and I'm assuming that's not what you're going after with our gifted and talented designation.
And in my conversations with parents, a number of them have told me, once I explain the procedure and the difference between gifted and advanced, many of them are honest and say, I think I have a very bright child. I'm not sure they're in the top 5%. I definitely think they're in the top 25. And they're very, I think, relieved and encouraged to know that what we are providing for the students and for their teachers is developmentally appropriate and will meet their needs.
Okay, so this helps me a lot because now I understand that when we're talking about gifted and talented, we're talking about the very, very top. We're not talking about the kids who take advanced classes.
Correct.
Okay, that helps me so much, and I really appreciate all of your help explaining this to me.
My pleasure.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you. And just that dialogue started raising some questions for me. I love the Bad Academic Hair Day. I've got to present something later this afternoon. I'm going to steal that for what I need it for. But the now I can't get my question out. Oh my! I got to wait for third reader before I ask this question now. The tracking from second grade to fifth grade, is that something that we want to do, or is that something that COMAR is stipulating? The testing between second grade and fifth grade.
COMAR does not stipulate when we test or how frequently. Many districts do a single test, and second grade seems to be fairly common, not only in Maryland, but when we get students who transfer from other states and have similar identification, we have found that they use many of the same assessments or many of the same metrics to identify students as advanced or gifted, and second grade seems to be, I won't say in every case, but it seems to be very common. We just feel that we need a second chance, a second opportunity for students.
And I fully support that. I guess where I was going with this is, did you designate fifth grade as being the second?
We did.
Okay.
That came from us. That was internal discussion based on research, based on members of my team who have a great deal of expertise in gifted and talented identification and are doing postgraduate work really focused on that area.
And I certainly support, and I think the data, the research shows that this is going to be a worthwhile exercise. What I guess it kind of goes along the lines of no good deed goes unpunished. And now we're going to have data. And I guess one of my concerns with having the data is that it can be read in a very positive way, or it can be read in a way that brings about scrutiny. And the scrutiny that I worry about is then if we say, okay, here are the numbers, here are our metrics at second grade, now here are our metrics at fifth grade, and God forbid we start to have a downward trend, I think that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows and suspicion. So while I support this, I think we need to do this. My concern is that we start.
We're not retesting students. We're not going to strip any student of their giftedness. If they are identified in second grade as gifted, we do not retest them.
So we're not
in
testing twice. So
no, we're not.
Second grade, and then they have the second opportunity in
if they have
fifth grade.
not been identified as gifted and talented, then we retest in grade 5.
That was my concern. Then if somebody had it and then they had the Bad Academic Hair Day and did not. Okay.
We're not doing that.
Mr. Grannon.
Thank you. Okay. Obviously not so gifted with the microphone here. Thank you for asking that. I also was curious whether the fifth grade assessment would be only additive or whether there would be a reconsideration. Could I ask you, maybe not just for my benefit, because I just don't know, but for the benefit of those here in person and those watching, could you speak in greater detail about the criteria that are used to make that determination in the second grade? how it's done, when it's done in the second grade, what the consequences of that are, how parents are informed of the designation, and then talk a little bit in greater detail about what specifically happens for that child going forward in second, third, fourth grade.
I would be happy to do that. And I think, in fairness, I should really address the proposed new policy, because moving forward, it's going to be a little different, actually in many ways substantially different from what we've done in the past.
If you don't mind, could I ask you, just for the benefit again for me and everybody, to describe what we've been doing and then to
Sure.
describe the delta?
What
Or
we
the
have
proposed
been
delta?
doing for second graders in the past was we have administered the Naglieri Nonverbal Ability Test, the NNAT as how it's often abbreviated in the
Can you say that
literature.
one more time?
Naglieri Nonverbal Ability Test. That's what we did in the past. We also used, over a 3-year period, the State of Maryland's Primary Talent Development Portfolio. And this is a series of activities that our teachers scored beginning in kindergarten through second grade. So it's 3 years worth of information that we gather on a student's thinking and questioning abilities, what they demonstrate in terms of the answers they generate to rather unique and appropriately leveled real-world problems for a very young child. We look at them, and maybe they're showing a readiness for more critical thinking, maybe they're showing an independence, which is the highest scale, or somewhere in between. When that is scored, we give the student for the highest performance they show at any time on that kindergarten through second grade continuum. Even if their highest score happened in first grade, they will get credit for that. Now, the question I often get from parents is, we just moved here in the middle of first grade, so my child missed a year and a half of this portfolio. Will that count against them in any way? And the answer is no. They have multiple opportunities throughout the 3 years to demonstrate their ability in this portfolio and the related activities. So arguably, a student could come in for a single year and still do very well in this portfolio. There's no penalty for not being in Anne Arundel County or in Maryland for the 3 years. We also use district-level assessments for math and reading. And for reading, we've also used their Fountas and Pinnell, or FNP, reading scores. In the past, what has happened is that students who score near the top of their cohort because of a combination of scores are put into testing pool. And at the end of the year, usually in April, these students would sit for an adaptive performance series test in math and reading. And by adaptive, it means it's a computer-based test. The items will get progressively harder or slightly less difficult depending on how many answers the student gets correct. But students who did not qualify for this testing pool were really out of the running for identification as ALP single subject or gifted and talented. One of the things we have changed is we have eliminated this testing pool. And in the process, we've eliminated another round of assessments and reduction in instructional time for students by removing this. Other things we have done, we have replaced the Naglieri nonverbal assessment I mentioned, or abilities test. That has been replaced with the cognitive abilities test, often known as the COGAT. We did that for 2 reasons. First of all, research indicates that it is slightly better at recognizing the gifts and potential in students from traditionally underserved populations, whether those are students on free and reduced meals, African American students, Latino students, students who haven't always reaped the full benefit of our program. It also contains a cognitive ability or cognitive thinking component, which has, I think, been a missing piece of how we've identified students. But it still includes nonverbal. So the students who don't have the strong linguistic background still have a shot at doing well in the nonverbal component, which looks very, very similar to what was on the Naglieri, as well as quantitative reasoning or math and a verbal component. Students who do really well on that test, say a student scoring at the 96th percentile, that really tells us everything we need to know about that child. It is a complete and comprehensive enough test that we can look at that and say there's really no reason to subject this child to further scrutiny. By performing that well, we can safely assume that they're in that top level of students who are gifted. However, students who score at a lower tier, it's not as though they are completely out of the running. We will then incorporate other measures, like their F&P scores, or the parent and or teacher. Really, we would use both parent and teacher input, a rating scale, We are trying to capture as many students as possible. We want to be as inclusive as possible. Still looking at our same overall outcome. Roughly the top 5% of students thus identified are gifted and talented, and approximately 20 to 25% overall are in the advanced strand. And we're using similar metrics in 5th grade.
So just to unpack that, if I can ask a follow-up question, you're saying you've eliminated the smaller testing pools. Does that mean all 2nd graders will now get this cognitive abilities
Yes,
test?
all 2nd graders and all 5th graders who were not previously identified as gifted and talented will get the appropriate level. The cognitive ability test is leveled for different grades, so they will get a more advanced level of it in 5th grade if they were not previously identified as gifted and talented.
Okay. And when you say roughly the top 5%, I guess are the grades somehow weighted so that only the top 5% get the designation, or if for one reason one year we have a bunch of students who get in the 96th percentile, you might have 8%?
We would have to fluctuate it. I mean, it's not a. We work very closely with our instructional data division, particularly Dr. Wang, our psychometrician, to come up with the appropriate cutoff scores. They advise everything.
That's the term I'm looking for. Are they curved?
Pardon?
That's the term I'm looking for. Is there a curve where there's basically kind of a cutoff that you're looking for of the top 5% of students?
I'm going to have to consult with her to make sure. I don't think that is the appropriate terminology, but I will defer to the psychometrician. I would be happy to get more clarity on how she makes that determination and get back to you with that.
Okay. And then my other question initially was, so what happens when the child is designated as gifted? How are the parents notified, and what happens for the students going forward in 3rd and 4th
We
grade?
notify the parents through a letter. We get a database of all of the students who have been identified as either gifted or advanced, and we generate letters for individual parents that are, well, it's the wonders of mail merge. We were able to generate a letter that specifically talks about that student's identification. It includes a snapshot of their data, so they know exactly how well their students did. And it also explains what we are going to do differently for that student as they move into 3rd grade. Students who are designated as either advanced or gifted are regrouped for math and or language arts, depending on how they were identified. In that regrouping, they are placed with other students who are academically similar. Now, in some schools, that can be an entire class. In some schools, it might be a subset within a larger class, depending on the size of the school and the number of students who are identified. I have resource teachers who work with each cluster of schools, and they are specialists in primary talent development, math, and language arts. And they work very closely with the teachers to train them in the types of instructional strategies and use of materials that have been very specifically developed for advanced and gifted kids. For example, the College of William and Mary has a gifted education center that is really, I'd say, internationally renowned. They develop materials that we use in language arts. We use things like mentoring mathematical minds, which brings very open-ended and real-world application problems in math to young students. If you ever have an opportunity to visit a school where they are doing this in a math class, it is nothing short of amazing. I mean, I've been in education a long time, and I'm still floored when I walk into a classroom and see students owning the discussion, owning the vocabulary of the discipline, and the teacher really standing on the sideline as a facilitator, answering questions and troubleshooting, but the students are immersed and engaged and enthusiastic. I never thought I'd live to hear this, but I was watching one of my resource teachers last year, and when a kid says, "Please give me more math problems to do," I've never heard that said ever until this past year. And these kids were 3rd graders doing really rudimentary algebra, but using hands-on manipulatives and loving it. We provide teachers with that training. We support them. We go in and model the instruction, especially if it's a teacher who has never worked with advanced students before. We'll spend a great deal of time co-planning, modeling, giving them feedback, and we provide a lot of ongoing professional development, both embedded within the school day and also after school, providing a stipend and or subcodes as needed. That regrouping continues through 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
So with this new test, how does the 3-year look back that you mentioned, how does that factor into the designation? You had mentioned that really it's a more comprehensive assessment based not just on a single day of testing, but also looking at the student's performance from K through second grade if we have that much data on the student. Is that still part of the designation?
It is still part of the primary talent development portfolio. We are still incorporating that unless, if that cognitive ability test blows everything out of the water. I mean, it really doesn't require further scrutiny. I think it may be, until we administer the test, I won't be able to predict numbers. It may be a relatively small number of students who score at that high level. But for the students, say, scoring in the 89th percentile, 90th percentile, not in that very top group, we'll still have those other metrics like the primary talent development portfolio and the parent and teacher input and the F&P, or Fountas and Pinnell scores, to also use as a way of determining whether the student belongs in the gifted or advanced track.
And are the parents going to be notified of whatever the mix of elements was that made the designation for
Yes.
their student? So if they got an 89% on that test, but throughout K through second grade they've been stellar at everything else, and that led to the designation, they'll
We're
learn
going to be
that?
transparent with all of the data points with educators and with parents.
And what about if students are not designated? Are parents going to be notified of their scores and, you know, the other reasons for not making the designation?
We haven't sent specific letters in the past for the students who are in what we call the exploratory trail. And even then, we still use developmentally appropriate elements of what we do in advanced learner programs. That's certainly a consideration. We have, when parents have contacted me and said, my child was not identified, can you explain the data? Can you explain why they weren't identified? I do two things. I share the data with them, explain what the data means, how it was determined, and also explain our appeals process if they feel that for some reason we have missed something crucial about their child.
Okay. And has that appeals process actually led to changes in designation?
Yes. In one case in particular, we found that there had been an error in scoring a child's portfolio. A member of my team rescored, rectified the error, and that was a very easy fix. And I was very happy the parent asked, because we might not have caught that.
Okay, the reason I ask that is, and if it's only one case, maybe I don't want to kind of have the tail wag the dog, but if it's the case where only the kids who are designated get letters sent home, and they find out, great, my kid's gifted and talented, and they move forward, you know, that for the kids who don't get the letter and maybe whose parents are not as engaged with how these designations are made, you know, maybe they don't even know that there's an appeals process. And I just wonder, you know, I wonder, is there anything to be said for, you know, notifying families as to why, you know, kids did not get the designation? And if that's something that you all have explored, or is that just something that school systems never do?
That's a very good question, and I would be moving forward, I would be in favor of exploring a way of communicating to the parents of students who are not designated as advanced or gifted, having some form of communication, because regardless of that identification, there are still supports and I think benefits that I know that my office provides for all students.
Yeah,
so I think moving forward, that's an important suggestion.
Where I'm going with this is, and I just try to be more blunt, is I don't think it's appropriate for, and this is my personal opinion, for parents' level of engagement to blow on the dice of this determination. So in families where parents are super informed and super aware, and they know, gee, the cognitive abilities test is going to be given to my little Johnny on Thursday, and I'm going to make sure he gets a great night's sleep before then. We're going to, you know, do all these math problems in the month leading up to that, that kind of thing. I don't want that affecting, you know, the designations that are made for the students, as opposed to maybe families where there's not that level of engagement.
Well, in terms of information about what's coming, say, for example, the administration of the cognitive abilities test, which will be in November, that information will be available to and shared with all parents. In fact, one of the things that my office is doing differently this year, wasn't going to bring this up, but it kind of is, your comments and questions are a perfect segue. I met with Steve Gray in our design and print office yesterday about doing a program, an information program for AACPS TV, which will also be on the website, sharing information about our office, including the identification process. So that will be available in video format, moderated discussion with members of my team about this process. We're going to also make sure we send out tweets letting people know when that's going to be available and how to access it on our website for the Advanced Learning Office, in addition to the broadcast on AACPS TV.
Okay, great. My last question is just that I assume there's going to be some type of report back to us on the results of this new test, maybe as opposed to the old test.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Birch.
Really brief question. So the first cohort that was identified then, they're going to be fifth graders this year?
That's correct.
So that's why this year is the time to say, let's add the fifth grade test to see if we can add to that cohort.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Hummer.
And another real quick one. So parents are notified when the COGAT, before the COGAT is given, about what it's going to be. And then all parents, whether their child is designated advanced learner or not, receive the results of the COGAT, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment? Okay.
I'm not sure I understood. So I thought I understood you to say that parents are not notified if their children are not designated as gifted and talented.
We don't. When we send out the letters in June saying your child has been identified as gifted and talented, or your child has been identified as ALP single subject, for the students who are identified for the exploratory program, we do not send out a specific letter for that. The data points along the way. Yes, parents are notified of the F&P scores, and in previous years, the Naglieri nonverbal. All of that has been shared along the way. It's just that final determination that's made based on a culmination of all the data. We have not had a specific letter going out to parents whose children were chosen for the ALPS exploratory program. Moving forward, that's something we could certainly do.
But every family will get the test score.
Gets the test.
We've always
Got
provided test data
Got
to
it.
every parent. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 4.11. This is an information to action item in the Crofton Area High School schematic design. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the Crofton Area High School schematic design.
And we have a presentation.
Yes, we do. Good morning, President Korbelak, members of the board. For the record, my name is Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities. In January of this year, a viability study was presented to the board that indicated a possible layout for a new Crofton Area High School and other school facilities on the existing Crofton Park, Cardinal Field, and middle school site. Shortly afterwards, in May, the educational specifications for Crofton High School were approved by the board, and the next step is the approval of the schematic design documents. The purpose of schematic design documents is to develop a scheme that defines the general scope and conceptual design of the project. It sets locations, relationships between building components, and circulation patterns for the building and for the site. And I will let the others introduce themselves and turn it over to them for the presentation.
Good morning. I'm Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Good morning. I'm Paul Hume, Principal with GWWO Architects.
I'm Gretchen Wagner, a Project Manager at GWWO Architects.
I'm going to walk you through the first few pages of a presentation that we have. This does not line exactly with your book, so if you want to know exactly what page to look at, let me know and we'll pass that on. We've tried to condense this down to a few pages that are typically gone, irrelevant to our discussion. On the next page is shows our design committee that we had. You'll find this is a little different than most design committees we have, since we don't have a school, and therefore no principal, no staff. So what we've asked is, we asked Chris Truffer, who is the regional assistant superintendent for the area, to participate in the design, as well as Jason Williams, who is the principal at Northeast High School, which is the last high school that we actually completed. Severna Park is still under design. We wanted somebody who is familiar with our ed specs and how it's actually implemented on the school. Since we also do not have a direct community, but it is the Crofton area, we've asked Clay Holland to participate more, not so much as administrative assistant at Crofton Middle School, but as a parent to represent the community as a whole. As we develop further, we'll have more folks coming in. We'll be meeting with the coordinators to get further details, but that's in a further part of the process. On the next page, we've showing the entire design team as we have at the moment. Obviously, it takes a lot of folks to involve, and the folks from GWWO at the top of that list are going to run us through the rest of the project here in a minute. The next tab, slide 4, is a project information summary we have in your book. In case you want to look at that real quick, it's page 7. The SRC for the program is $1696. The budget is, as was shown in the FY17 budget, we're expecting construction to be about $95 million. And project schedule, we're here in August. It's going to take us a good year to get through all the design process. The construction documents won't be completed until August of 2017. In addition, not shown on here is throughout the design process and before we actually start construction, we have meetings with the community as a whole. This fall, sometime after we've got schools settled and everybody's comfortable in their spot, we'll set a meeting up with the community so they can come in, look at the drawings. We'll do the same kind of presentation with them so they can understand and answer questions for them. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to the folks from GWWO to run you through the design.
Next slide. How do we do that?
Next slide.
Just that simple.
Say next slide or just
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. We thought it would be smart to begin with a quick review of the existing conditions at Crofton, just to remind everybody of what's going on at the school. Starting in the lower right-hand corner of the image in front of you, you'll see that Crofton Middle School is part of the site. Moving around counterclockwise to the north and to the right, you'll see Cardinal Field, which is an existing rec and parks fields area. And then continuing over, we find Crofton Park proper, what most people probably think of Crofton Park. That's where the play areas are, the walking paths. There's some softball fields and baseball fields. And then finally coming around, we come to Lithican Walks, which is a historic site and one of the areas that we are trying to stay away from. In the center of the site, there's an existing football field and a baseball diamond that we are going to keep. Next image, please. This is where we left off at the end of the feasibility study. The results of that study indicated a few key things. One, the location of the building, kind of centrally located in the back piece, which gives quick and easy access to the multiple fields around there. Including the existing area of Cardinal Field where we're proposing putting a number of fields. We'd also indicated a number of fields to the left of the school, as well as bus parking and parking in front of it and around it. The multi-purpose field, or the football field, number 5, and the baseball field, as I mentioned, were going to remain as is. At the end of the feasibility study, we received a number of finalized reports. They included topographical information, wetlands delineation, and things of that nature that at the beginning of schematic design, we went back and we re-examined basically almost everything just to verify that we're in the right location. What came out of the schematic design process, next image please, this is our current site plan, is for the most part the building remained in the same general area. However, we moved it slightly to the left on this image because of the topography. We're trying to be good stewards of and work with the site itself as opposed to trying to make the site work with what we want to do. We chose to put the fields, a majority of the fields, with moving the building a little to the left. We now go into the Cardinal Field area, which, as we've mentioned earlier, already has fields, so that should be something that the community is comfortable with. And then the baseball fields that were located adjacent to the left of the building are actually going to become 2 multi-purpose fields, non-lit type things. We kept, as I mentioned, the baseball and football field in the location, and they're anticipated to be used. Site circulation through the site, we're creating and extending the ring road, which will allow access back to the high school, and continuing that off into Underwood Road. And we're still studying that a little bit more in the feasibility study. We saw that connection at the circle, the traffic circle. We've moved it a little bit south of that because, or rather to the east, because it makes more sense from a site layout. We are undergoing a traffic study right now that is going to review the flow of cars and things of that nature on the site. Currently, it's anticipated that the primary site access to the high school will be off Davidsonville Road to the left, down by the park. The middle school entrance will remain as is. Part of this project is also improving the middle school bus loop and parking, and that's another piece of the pie that we're looking at. Next image, please. This image we thought was useful. I mentioned working with the site as opposed to trying to control the site. It's quite staggering. In the last few years, what's come to light is the moving of dirt is or soils is quite expensive. A 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot cube of dirt, just pushing it around, is almost $22. We're talking tens of thousands of those type of things on this site, not to mention the cost of importing. This is the general massing of the building, and if we start on the right hand, that parking area is the bus loop, which comes in at a higher level. The orange color is the cafeteria. The darker red is the physical ed classes, and so we've created a secondary entrance that actually works well for allowing those events to happen. Moving down the building and frankly down the hill, we come to the primary visitor parking and student drop-off. The main entrance to the school is that white frosted piece in the middle, and that is of course flanked by both the administrative as well as the evening high school, so we have some control over that, which is what we want. And then ultimately moving along, we have the classroom bar, which is that yellow shaped piece. What's interesting is the shape of that is directly related to the topography on the site. We worked very closely with Jacobs, who is the CM on the job, to really tweak it. At one point we had that as a straight building, but what we found is by doing a simple cant, the cost of the building didn't go up very much, but we saved quite a bit in soils. So it's not just an architectural gesture, it actually makes a lot of sense to do it from a financial standpoint. Next slide, please. Walking you through the floor plans, the lowest floor plan is actually within the classroom bar. And we have the FACS program as well as World and Classical Languages. In the middle kind of centerpiece, that part of the classroom bar, as you will see, is almost like shared spaces. So we have things like flex classrooms in there, as well as computer classrooms and things of that nature. And then to the top, we have the social studies wing. Next slide, please. Moving up to the second level, which in many ways is the main entrance for most visitors. I'm going to start on the right. We come in through the entrance, and you'll see the administration to the left, as well as the evening high school to the right. You come into a main lobby, which leads into the auditorium. So again, that's separate from the gymnasium entrance, which you'll see in a minute, as well as the cafeteria. So two separate events could happen simultaneously without overlapping. As we move to the left, we have special education, and then as we cross into the bar, which is the classroom area, we have math to the south. Those shared spaces I talked about, such as computer labs and flex in the center, and then English at the top. Next slide, please. And then on what simply is the biggest floor plan, you'll see that as I mentioned earlier, there's a secondary gymnasium entrance as well as cafeteria entrance to the right, which allows easy access to those, which can be cordoned off. The physical education is more centralized within that bar, very efficient. Around the back at the top is technical education. And then as we move down, the cyan color is the media center, which again is nicely located at that main entrance off of the main entry lobby. And on this level, we also have administrative functions. That was something we worked very closely with the team to determine that needed to happen, that they wanted control, and it worked out really well. The yellow piece that is between the two corridors is the art. And then finally, we go over into the classroom bar, which is predominantly science on both wings, with, again, the shared spaces in the middle. And that concludes the design review.
And with that, we'll take any questions.
Mrs. Birch.
Do any of our other evening high schools have their own entrance and office space like that?
Severna Park High School.
Okay. Okay, in the new.
Right. We've been able to do it because it's a fresh design.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you.
I don't have any other board questions, but I have two public comment items, Nancy Robinson and Stephen Sutton.
Good morning. First, I'd like to say that I am in support of Crofton High School. My husband and I have been in the Crofton area since the early 70s and 80s, respectively. We've raised our daughter here, and now our grandson is being raised here as well, and we certainly look forward to him being able to attend Crofton High School. It's a wonderful place to raise a family, and the school would complete the picture. I live directly on Underwood Road. We, myself and my neighbors, are extremely concerned about the increase in traffic on our road. We do not want Crofton High School to have access from Underwood Road. As we are continuously battling Anne Arundel County in efforts to control the traffic and the speed. We have been trying to get the speed limit reduced to 30 miles per hour in hopes of implementing traffic calming humps. You can't have them at 35 miles per hour. We have not yet been fruitful in our efforts, and as a resident there, our quality of life and safety continues to be sacrificed for the sake of local development. We've had a couple of communities there that are accessed via Underwood Road. The Wall Chapel Shopping Center, I don't know if any of you travel on Route 3, that can be a real mess. And commuters routinely travel Underwood Road to avoid Route 3. So we've seen it all, dump trucks, tour buses, commuters. It's a very dangerous environment for a community. We would appreciate a partnership with the Board of Ed and the Build Crofton High School organization that is considerate of the residents of Underwood Road. And I'm asking, is it too late for that?
I don't think, I think he just said that they were still doing a traffic study.
Yes, and I have a question about that. I'm looking for that gentleman that said that. We have been communicating with Corporal Middleton of Anne Arundel County Police Department. I actually spoke with him this morning. He was running some radar on Underwood Road. I have been communicating with Nestor Flores from the Anne Arundel County Department of Public Works. He is trying to do another traffic study. We had one about, I don't know how many years ago. Like I said, we weren't able to get the traffic calming humps. We got some islands. They didn't help. We have more traffic. I'm wondering, is this an independent study? Have you been working with the county? I would like to see that be working with the county regarding that study, because we've already initiated that. Okay, thank you.
The traffic study is required by the county in terms of zoning, so the team is absolutely working with the county in that study.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to make a presentation. I'm Steve Sutton, and I represent the Crofton Colony community, which is a 62-home, age-restricted, 55-plus community off of Underwood Road. And we have 3 dead-end streets. One of those streets, Alfred Drive, which I'm a resident, dead ends with 5 homes on the which borders on the property of the high school. If you notice in the diagram that they showed, the 5 homes at the top, I'm one of those residents that has backs onto the park. With me today is also one of our homeowner association representatives, John Brown. We do, in looking at the viability study in comparison with the schematic diagram, we are gratified to see that where the building is sited and the fields are sited, we now apparently will not have any disruption to the trees that are behind our properties. and the building seems to be at a position which may not cause us any disruption. However, there are three items that we were concerned about which are not explicitly described in this schematic diagram study. One is whether or not there will be a deterrent of any kind to prevent traffic, both foot and vehicular traffic, as a means of access into the high school property from Salford Drive. We really would not like to have any change in the environment and increased foot traffic specifically into or out of the high school property. The second item is we're very much concerned about the stormwater runoff that would come from the property with the increase of impervious surfaces. We at the end of Salford Drive particularly are at the low end of that property, and even though we have a stormwater pond, we're not sure what the implications are, and it's not clear in the study, even though there will be stormwater design activity being ongoing. The third item, I'd like to reiterate Ms. Robinson's concern about traffic on Underwood Road, and I can speak from experience this morning when I was riding my bike. There was a police officer out in an unmarked car doing radar, and he pulled over a truck for speeding. And those are the items, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this item? All those in favor of the schematic design? Motion passes 7-0-0. The next item on the agenda is 4.12, the Monarch Global Academy Public Contract School Laurel Campus 8 Classroom Edition Schematic Design Development. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approve the Monarch Global Academy Public Contract School Laurel Campus 8 Classroom Edition Schematic Design Development.
So move. Second.
Okay, and we have a presentation or no?
Just any questions?
No presentation. Any questions on this item? Mrs. Burge.
Just a quick question. I know that it doesn't fall under the same requirements because we're not using state money for this, but what is the purpose of increasing the size to 867 students when the contract only has 825?
Just for student. Excuse me.
Give them your name.
Oh, I'm Greg Altieri, and I'm with the Children's Guild. We're not. We're expanding the school just for student experience, just to be able to allow things to operate more efficiently and better.
So maybe I can answer that. The number of students is not increasing. We are not going over the cap of 825. So in terms of the number, I'm not necessarily sure where that. Okay. Okay, that may be the state rated capacity, but we don't contractually, we can't go over 825. That's correct. Absolutely. Like this year, we'll lose our music room, our art room. They'll have to be on a cart. So with the addition, we'll gain those classrooms back, but same enrollment.
Mrs. Hummer.
So the addition is not attached to the current building, correct? It's
Correct.
a separate building. And why is that? Why are we making it separate and not having an attachment?
The initial plan was to try to attach it to the building. There's some environmental issues, and it would have required us to relocate the fire lane, and also there's some underground stormwater management next to the fire lane. That would have all had to been relocated, so it would have cost a lot more money to do the project. So there was a piece of property in the back of the school that just allowed us to do it at a more effective cost.
And there will be, how is it going to be secured between the two buildings? Will students in the new addition be going back and forth to the main building?
The students will go back and forth between the main building. I think that the plan right now is they're probably going to take the older kids,
right,
and put the older kids in the back. It'll be secured through the same security system that we have in the main school, so you won't be able to get in the building unless you have an access card. And we'll also have video cameras that are hooked up to the main entrance of the building, so they'll be able to see what's going on in the back as well. And we're also, one other thing, we're also have a vice principal will be in that building. He'll have his office in that building, so it won't be just really, it'll work just like the main part of the building.
And the addition is not going to do away with the fabulous new playground, is it?
No. No, it's not.
It's still going to be there.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any public questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. Mrs. Hummer.
When is this expected to be done?
We're expecting that it would be done June 15th to June 30th of this coming year.
Okay, thank you.
The next two items we have are review items. Item 5.01, the elementary intentional focus early literacy.
Good morning, President Korbelak, Vice President Hummer, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Arlato. My name is Kathy Kubik, and I'm the Associate Superintendent for the Office of School Performance. And this time I'd like my team to have an opportunity to introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Alston. I'm the Executive Director of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement.
Good morning. Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction.
Good morning. Janine Robinson, the Regional Assistant Superintendent for the Glen Burnie and Severna Park clusters.
Good morning. Jane Friend, Coordinator of Elementary Reading and Integrated Literacy, Curriculum and Instruction.
Good morning. Mary Talar, Assistant Superintendent for Advanced Studies and Programs.
This presentation today is about the second grade students in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Not just some, but all second grade students, and our efforts to have each of them read at or above grade level by the end of second grade. Later, you will hear from Antoine, a rising third grader at Edgewater Elementary School, who began his second grade year reading below grade level.
I'm going to begin this story today with some data from our Instructional Data Division. This graph shows all of our elementary schools at the beginning of last year. The red denotes the students in each school who were not meeting their grade level expectation. Yellow approaching, green, and blue is exceeding grade level expectation. We started the year with lots of red and yellow. Those colors represent children at each of our schools who could not read at the appropriate grade level in second grade. So our story begins today when we threw down the gauntlet and we asked our principals and our reading teachers and our classroom teachers, can you get all of your second graders to read at or above grade level by the end of second grade? And this is how we ended the year last year and what brings us here today. You'll notice that the red is cut in half, 50% in 1 year. So the story is about what happened. We formed a partnership, all of our offices, and we worked last year with our principals and our reading teachers and our classroom teachers on our intentional focus to get all students reading at or above grade level by the end of second grade.
We kept in mind that our students come to us from various homes with different backgrounds and experiences. It's our job to get all of them, yes, all of them, to a common finish line. One very real barrier to our plan that we had to consider, however, was the negative effects that poverty has on student achievement.
We knew this would not be an easy gauntlet for principals and their teams to pick up. In fact, this video illustrates one of the biggest variables our schools face, overcoming the barrier of poverty and its effect on student achievement. Take a look.
Meet Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Jordan, and Jamie Johnson. Two beautiful babies born on the very same day. Each baby has a good chance of landing in a good place in life, as long as one of them doesn't lose the zip code lottery. Like 1 million babies each year, Jamie's been born into a low-income family. And since Jamie's mom lacked access to good prenatal care, Jamie is much smaller than Jordan. And since they won't have access to brain-developing activities found in high-quality childcare, low-income children like Jamie will be 2 times more likely to experience developmental delays. It probably won't surprise you that by their 3rd birthday, Jamie's been exposed to a lot fewer words than Jordan. A whole lot fewer. And I imagine Jamie's 4th birthday won't be much better. By the time they reach kindergarten, Jamie will have already fallen behind Jordan in language and pre-reading skills by 12 to 14 months. And getting to school on a regular basis will be perhaps Jamie's biggest challenge. Unfortunately, a myriad of health, transportation, and housing problems will cause between 5 and 7.5 million Jamies to be chronically absent this year. But with summer right around the corner, you'd think Jamie would have plenty of time to catch up with Jordan then. Sadly, summer presents new challenges for Jamie. A mountain of challenges. You see, every summer, Jordan's learning will evolve by a month because of access to libraries, field trips, and camps, while Jamie will lose 2 months of school learning every summer because good habits such as reading haven't been reinforced. By the time they reach 3rd grade, Jamie will be between 2 and 2.5 school years behind Jordan in critical reading skills. And how much more likely is Jamie to drop out than Jordan because he can't read at a 3rd grade level? 13 times more likely, and the results of which are frankly catastrophic. Wait just 1 minute there, folks. The story doesn't end right there. Fortunately for Jamie and Jordan and all of us, there's a whole lot of folks out there that believe neither luck, nor lottery, nor zip codes should dictate Jamie's future.
Reading is arguably the most critical skill we can teach our students. Reading is the gateway to learning, and strong reading skills form the basis for learning in all subject areas. As highlighted in the video, gaps emerge early, and for many of our students, they occur before they ever reach our doorstep. We also know that the older a child gets, the more difficult those gaps are to close. Students who do not meet grade level milestones in reading are at a greater risk of falling behind and eventually dropping out. One of the smartest investments we can make is an investment in a high-quality early literacy program. The long-term effects are simply immeasurable.
So what is the effect of poverty in reading in Anne Arundel County Public Schools? Please take a look at this graph. The left axis shows the percentage of students reading at or above grade level. The bottom axis shows the percentage of students in a school receiving free and reduced meal services. Each school will be represented by a blue dot. So to clarify, the first dot represents a school with approximately 0% of its students receiving free and reduced meal services, and approximately 80% of its second graders reading at or above grade level. As you can see, the percentage of students receiving free and reduced meals in a school increases, the level of achievement tends to decrease. But keep in mind that behind every data point is a student, and behind every student is a story.
So why have an intentional focus on reading? You can look at this slide and see that our schools have many timelines to meet, tasks to complete, goals to beat. But last year, we thought, what if we only focused on one thing at every level? All of the things on the screen were important, but we thought at our monthly principal meetings, our school-based leadership meetings, our data meetings, etc., we would focus on one thing, and we called it an intentional focus.
At elementary school, we decided to see what would happen if we really wanted all kids, and I mean all kids, to read at or above grade level.
We clarified and emphasized our earlier work using the Fontes and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment System, otherwise known as F&P. With F&P books, they are assigned a level from A through Z, depending on their difficulty level. F&P sets clear expectations for students as they progress through each grade level. For example, kindergarten. Kindergarten students are expected to begin at a level A, then progress increasingly through complex books to a level M by the end of grade 2.
We adopted guided reading as our instructional approach to teaching reading in all of our elementary schools in kindergarten through 2nd grade. Teachers use the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment to determine students' precise strengths and needs as readers. They use the assessment to drive their instruction in a small group setting.
Exactly 1 year ago, I had the opportunity to address our 136 reading teachers about the reality of the work ahead and the challenges associated with the adoption of guided reading as our primary response to the Fontes and Pinnell data. We invited them on this journey as we knew we could not accomplish this goal without their leadership and expertise.
All of the offices in AACPS work together to provide sustained and ongoing professional development. We increase the amount of professional development in the area of reading and align the content delivered to reading teachers, principals, and our elementary classroom teachers. Throughout the 4 early dismissal days, reading teachers worked with our K-2 teachers to support their growth in analyzing the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment results to guide their reading instruction. We invested in 9,000 books for every elementary school for use across all grade levels. These books provide our teachers with choice in order to meet our students' needs and interests.
Let's take a look at the red. 24% of our 2nd grade students did not meet grade level expectations in the fall of 2015. By the spring of 2016, we cut the gap in half in 1 year.
Drawing your attention to the right side of the chart, especially to the blue section that references our students exceeding grade level expectations, you will see that with simultaneous emphasis on acceleration of all, those meeting and exceeding in addition to those not meeting or approaching during the school year, with the implementation of the primary talent development, where all students experienced enriched literacy learning environments, and advanced primary readers engaged in strategies that invited critical and creative thinking, questioning models, and advanced reading resources that promoted inquiry and opportunities to talk about the text, and authentic learning contexts, whether reading across the curriculum or in EEE, BLUE grew by 14%. In fact, as of spring of 2016, 80% of all Anne Arundel County Public Schools second graders were meeting or exceeding the performance standards in reading.
So in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, we often talk about percents of schools, percents of students. But what does that actually mean for students? It means that last year we had 867 second graders who began the year either not meeting or only approaching the grade level expectation, but within one school year ended meeting or exceeding grade level expectation. Here's the impact at Edgewater Elementary School. This is, again, returning to our student Antoine, but don't take it from me, take it from one of our students.
Can you tell us why you're getting celebrated today? Why did you get to ring the bell today?
Because I'm at level O.
Because you're at level O? You started at a level G, which is at first grade level, and you ended at what?
O.
And do you know what level that is?
Third grade.
That's third grade level. How did you go from a G to an O in only 1 year? How did you do that?
I tried my best.
And it says for reading and reading. We're so proud of you.
We could not have answered the bell without the help of our 136 reading teachers. They embraced the work of the intentional focus and dedicated their efforts to the diagnostic need of all our early learners. Yesterday, we gave them all bells as a reminder of the work we did last year and the work we have ahead of us.
So today's story about last year is over, but our work is not done. We look forward to another exciting school year when even more of our children will be able to ring the bell. And if we had a bell for every child who met grade level expectation last year, here's what it would sound like: 867 chimes. Thank you, and at this time, we'll take any questions.
Mr. Grannon.
Still not getting it.
Don't worry.
This is the most encouraging news that I could imagine, and just you all deserve a round of applause for what you've done for these kids. I mean, that's just tremendous work, and it's got to be, the guiding mission for all of us. It's great to hear this. Two questions. First is, this presentation is extremely informative, and I think the kind of thing that would be encouraging for all families to hear. What are we doing to get some distilled form of this out to families? And I don't know whether it would be electronic or hard copy, but something so they could see, are you seeing this difference at home in your kids, so that they themselves could encourage it and reinforce it, and for kids who are not getting books at home, maybe get some more books and understand that their students are really making great gains. I think it's very important for all families to see this, and the fact that you all got it to go not just from 24 to 12 in the ones we're really trying to help, but to go from 55 to 69 in the ones who were exceeding is just so special, and I think all families need to hear about this in some form or another. So I just encourage you all to think about some way to get this out to families, really as quickly as possible. And my second question is, what is kind of the summer follow-up for the increased efforts that you all made during the school year? What did you do to try to make sure that that was maintained for the summer?
So we've already met with our reading teachers yesterday to talk about unrolling a similar professional development plan for our teachers in grades 3 through 5. I mentioned earlier that we had a trainer model this year for our K through 2 teachers, and this year we'll follow that same model for our early dismissal days with a big focus on the reading instruction, taking that diagnostic approach, implementing guided reading in the intermediate grades this year.
Okay, maybe I should rephrase the question. I mean, for the students to continue with their reading over the summer was like, for example, I know that my little boy had a reading log, and I'll just out myself and say I didn't even know that he was supposed to be doing the reading log until August. So I printed out August and said, well, at least we'll have 1 month to turn in. But I just wonder, what kind of steps did you all take to?
So a couple of things were done. So with our partnership with the public library, there's always this summer reading program where students are encouraged to go to the library, check out books, and read. Oftentimes you'll see, as you explained, that your son each school will do reading logs for their children. Also, we have summer school. So at our Title I schools, all of our second graders, and actually all of those students, we offer the opportunity to attend summer school. In addition, we also offer Summer Academy to students who are not in a Title I school. So programming was available for students to continue reading. And as we look at the programming for those students during the summer programming, we modeled guided reading so that the programming was not different from what they are accustomed to on their daily instruction.
And we actually did partner with the library to create the summer reading list, the recommended summer reading list, so that they are in line with the expected levels of expectation through Fountas and Pinnell.
And as this wave of students goes through the next grades, is there kind of a plan for follow-up?
I think that's what I was speaking to earlier, is next year these students, the 12%, we have work to do when they get to 3rd grade. So that's our plan, to continue that and continue the instruction through 5th grade next year, this year.
Part of our campaign has also included educating our parents in regards to the Fountas and Pinnell leveling system, educating them about what each level means. We've created systemic brochures that we distribute to parents, mainly through parent conferences as well. And these brochures also include strategies that parents can use to assist their student at home, as well as help them select appropriate reading materials for their child.
Mrs. Summer.
So I know Fountas Pinnell, the big part of it is the guided reading, but it has its own curriculum. How aligned is our curriculum for K-2, 3 to 5 with Fountas Pinnell curriculum? As we've developed and rolled out these new curriculums for the other grades, how incorporated are the two strategies and approaches?
So it's directly aligned. The F&P assessment system is aligned to the leveled reading books, so that when teachers are selecting that material, it's directly connected to the instructional reading plan that they've developed for that student that occurs during that guided reading time.
Okay, so they're not like two separate programs. Like we're doing the curriculum here, and then we're doing Fountas and Pinnell time. We're combining the two together.
Yes, correct.
And it's a complete balanced literacy program that also includes an interactive read aloud, shared reading, and a writing component as well.
So I know we're focused here today. We're looking at the data for 2nd grade. Did we see similar growth in the other grade levels in our Fountas and Pinnell data?
Yes, we did.
Good. I'd love to see the full data, for all the classes and see where we're going with that. 2nd grade, I know, is a kind of a crucial point as we head to 3rd grade. We want them on grade level, but we want them on grade level the whole way across. So I'd love to see that. But great job.
Mrs. Birch.
I just wanted to follow up on something Mr. Alston said. I want to do a shout out for the elementary summer school programs and summer academy programs, because they're not, when people think of summer school, they think, oh, I failed and now I have to go to summer school. But in our elementary schools, that's not what it is at all. It's for any student who, their parents are a little concerned about them, getting the summer slide, and the academies are open for them. And I just think it's a wonderful program that so many of our kids have benefited from, and want to compliment everyone on that too. So,
Mrs. Nally.
I'm just curious, many of our students are in after-school care, before and after-school care, is there any, are there any strategies or anything that a school does to try to help those students who are in before and after-school care? I mean, we had some at many of the schools. They're there till 6 o'clock, and so they're quite a number of time after school. That could we? I know Park and Rec does many of those programs, and I think there are others that do some. What do we do to kind of help that?
So we can certainly take a look at strengthening our partnerships for our Park and Rec programs, but we definitely have in our Title I after-school programs, there's that direct alignment. So we do have that existing in place. But thank you for the suggestion, and we'll reach out to our other friends.
Mr. Graney.
I had a quick question about the summer academies. It sounds like that's a great resource and opportunity for the students, but what's done to make families aware of that? Because frankly, this is the first time I've ever heard about it. So I don't know, for example, was that an option for my son, for my kindergartner?
Yes, sir, it is. So in the third marking period, brochures are sent home through report cards, and for our students in kindergarten, just sent home as well, that inform them of the sites as well as the times and the programs that are being offered.
Thank you all. This is great. Terrific news. Our next review item is 5.02, award of contracts. Are there any board questions or comments on any of the contracts? Is there any public comment? Mrs. Hummer?
I have a question on the contract. Am I on the right one? This is what we're doing, right? Okay, 502. Yes, okay, sorry. Just checking my paperwork. The contract for the water testing services, it says the coliform bacteria test on the back. It says at one location it's $25 per test, and at one location it's $125 per test. Is this different test? Is it a larger sample? What is what's the cost difference there?
For the record, Alex Checkno, Chief Operating Officer. Yeah, essentially it's a different criteria. So the Maryland Department of Environment essentially establishes the type of test. It's based on the volume, the population served, et cetera, whether you're on well water, whether you're on potable domestic water, et cetera. So there's a prescriptive water testing algorithm for the different facilities that MDE establishes, and then the tests align with that. Some of the tests are quite honestly just more expensive to conduct than some of the others.
And so I see one of these says Southern High School and one says Chesapeake. Are those on well water?
Yes, ma'am. Both of those sites are in fact on well water.
Okay, so that could be, and I would assume for a high school, is there greater testing done? I mean, do you test all over the building?
Correct. So there's a point source, and then there's a calculated number of sites you have to draw from. Okay. So again, it's a highly regulated and very prescriptive sort of environment. But you are correct. The larger the complex, typically the more samples that are taken.
Okay, and different standards for well water versus county.
Yes, ma'am.
Water. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sasso?
I think we got a little note this morning, and it said, I anticipated hearing that the tests being performed are actually two different tests, but that did not happen. I am still confused why would be quoted two different prices by the same vendor for the same test. And I can't remember who sent it from the board. Not from the board, from administration. Walt sent it. Because he had called, and it's the same test. Yeah, but he said he had called the company, and the company stated they are the same test. If you read the email that he sent out this morning.
If you take a look for Chesapeake, there's 6 per month. For Southern, middle, and for Chesapeake Complex has 3 schools. It's got Bodkin, it's got Chesapeake Middle School, and it's got Chesapeake High School on it. So there's 3 different buildings at Chesapeake Complex. Southern High School is just 1 building. Southern Middle School is just 1 building. So it costs more money to test the 3 buildings at the Chesapeake Complex because you've got an elementary, a middle, and a high school completely separate and distinct. While they have 1 common well water source and they have 1 common tank, you essentially have more buildings, a larger footprint, and a more distributed distribution system.
Okay.
3 buildings versus 2, essentially. And anytime Mr. Fedowitz has a question, he certainly can come and approach me directly with that.
Okay. Any public comment? We didn't have any. Okay. The last items are consent items, 6.01 and 6.02. Do I have a motion to bundle these two and move them from information to action? All those in favor?
Aye.
We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the Board of Education award contracts as listed on today's agenda, 6.01 and 6.02.
Is there any public comment on these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 700. I just have a couple of announcements. The next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, September 7th at 10 a.m. The next Board Budget Committee meeting is Wednesday, September 21st at 4:30 p.m. And the next Board Policy Committee meeting will be Wednesday, September 28th at 1 p.m. Mrs. Nally, Mrs. Hummer.
All right. I make a motion to close the meeting and to move into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, to consult with counsel, to obtain legal advice on a legal matter, and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
All those in favor? That concludes the public portion of our meeting. We're now in closed session. Thank you.